Good morning. I'll share my fishing experiences. I'm Steve Haga. I'm from Kaohsiung, Taiwan, originally from Washington, UBF. My key verse is, be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. When I was fished, as I entered college, I had a vague curiosity about Christians. I was not a Christian. If you'd ask me, I would say I was an atheist, but I was a bit of an agnostic also. I had some vague curiosity, and I knew that there were Christians who taught people would study the Bible and things like that in college. And I was curious what Christianity was. And I saw flyers on campus and kiosks like this one. I remember one flyer as a new student. I'd look at all the posters on those kiosks, and I remember one for InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, and I thought, oh, that's for athletes. I thought varsity meant athletes. So I do know that at that time I had this vague idea of maybe looking into those issues, but also finding every excuse not to. So I think in hindsight, no, I was never going to attend a meeting because I saw a flyer. Also, there was a first look fair for new students, and it looks like this. It's bigger than that. That's just one row of tables there. And so I went to visit this first look fair. But when I got there and I saw all the tables for the Christian groups, like a whole row of religious groups, I got fearful. I changed my mind. I decided I did not want to be there. So I started speed walking past the tables back to my dorm as fast as I could. One table was different. A man stood in front of it instead of sitting, and he stopped me and asked me to study the Bible. After studying, he was very enthusiastic and encouraged me to keep studying and to go to church. The lesson here, I at least could only be reached by a bold and confident evangelist. When I began fishing, so I studied each week and attended church for 2 years before I converted. About 6 months later, Mr. Elijah encouraged me to go fishing with him. So by that time, even though I was only 6 months a Christian, I'd been attending church for 2 years. I was self-conscious and let him do all the talking. After a few months, I started talking more. From fishing, I got my first early Bible students. The lesson, a Bible teacher's guidance is important because young Christians are often not eager to begin fishing or teaching. What I learned through fishing. Fishing to strangers helped me to become bolder. Fishing helped me to develop a heart for people. Fishing helped me not to worry about rejection. Fishing was the way I found all of my early Bible students. The lesson is overcoming self-consciousness and talking to people about Jesus is a necessary part of being a mature Christian. What I learned about how to fish. It is good to fish in pairs. It's good to emphasize September fishing before students get too busy with school or get involved in other groups, maybe even cults. It's best to speak to students who are alone or in pairs. Fishing in pairs, but also speaking to students who are alone or in pairs. Because if you speak to a larger group, the one who's not interested and is a negative idea, that negative energy really discourages those who might have interest from responding. So I never had a good response with 3 or more people. And even with 2, if there was one who seemed like maybe had interest, the other one, if doesn't have interest, sort of dominated the conversation. So it's best to speak to students who are alone. It's best to speak to students who are not in a hurry or very preoccupied. The way I would fish is, hi, do you have any interest in studying the Bible? Just a quick question like that. The advantage is it reached many students. If they were passing by hundreds of students, you could just ask them all that question. But most say no, and many did not really understand what they were saying no to. So that was the problem with it. The lesson is, however, I would draw here is that rules were made to be broken. I mean, this is what I learned about how to fish, but actually I was fished in September, so that, yeah. But my Bible teacher, he wasn't fishing in a pair. And I was very in a hurry when I was fished. I was trying to look like I had somewhere to be, and I was looking down and moving. So these rules might have some value, but actually rules are made to be broken, and we don't have to follow those rules. If Spirit leads to talk to someone, we can talk to them. How the fishing experience changed. Students increasingly over the years, became engrossed in their cell phones and less willing to talk. The campus climate also slowly changed. At the beginning, non-Christians had a generally positive view about the Bible as at least teaching morality, even if they didn't believe it, which was actually my own where I was coming from when I was a new student. But over the years, students had an increasingly negative view of the Bible and of even being asked about it. A no answer was increasingly reflexive, and they weren't being reached. I always remember that first angry student. It was around the year 2003 or something. Angry, so angry, so angry. And I sensed something had changed. These students were different. Actually, I've been away in Taiwan for the last decade. And when I revisited the US back in 2016, I was shocked how much worse things had gotten. I think that angry student is I think, I don't live in US now, but I think it is common. The lesson, changing times may call for new approaches. Some new ways that we tried during the time I was in Washington UBF around 2000. I tried posting more flyers, particularly in September, like go to every kiosk and put flyers up, and also signing up for a table at the student union. If you're a student group, you can get a table there. I did sense some subtle animosity from the facilities people. Maryland is not the Bible Belt, but you're a student group. They have to let you have a table. But there was some animosity, but still, we can push through it. And a table at the student union is one way to reach students. Also, holding on-campus activities. So I moved our fellowships group Bible study to campus so that we could invite students and say, hey, we got a Bible study right after this over there in that room. Would you like to come? Also, we tried moving the youth meeting to campus for September. And these things had some effect. It's a lot of work and not many people came, but maybe a few new people did come through these things. You have to try something. And I think it was hard. It's a lot of work, but I think some people did come through those things. The lesson, we should be creative to find new ways. Then I went to Taiwan, and my early experience of fishing in Taiwan. We began serving in Taiwan in 2007. Look how young I am, and there's Allison, how young she is. Yes, that is our campus in the background, and yes, that is the campus beach in the foreground. We have a campus beach. I did not know that when I took the job, but it is nice to have. The politeness of the students here was refreshing. There's some Chinese culture of respecting of elders and teachers. So it was refreshing not to meet that guy who was so angry. We put up flyers, held the Bible study in my office, and the Sunday worship in a campus room. And even though the flyers flyers are not so many people come by flyers, but more than had come in Washington. Some people did come by flyers, and actually in that about after the first year, Yawan came through the flyer, she and her friend, and she has been with us ever since. Recently, she graduated with her PhD and became a professor. She now is serving in the Yunling University Ministry. There's her center. It's a small little room. Not all of those members, of course, are in her ministry. Some are visiting in this visiting picture, but there's Sarah, her Bible student, and also a co-worker in that ministry. And Candace is also a professor who also supports her in some ways. I would also go fishing with another member as a translator. One time I went with Yawan, and we went fishing, and that's when we found Naomi. So not just flyers, some people came through the regular traditional fishing. And when I would go fishing with people, with my translator, I would say, hi, I'm a professor here, but occasionally we go around and tell students about some Christian activities we offer on campus. Do you have any questions? And they say no. And I say, do you have any interest? And then they say, what does it mean? And it has to be translated. And then they say, eh. I say, well, if you have a little interest, a little bit, then so they'll say, hi, how, which means a little bit, or I don't know, so. Then I'll say, well, you have a little interest, I'll say a little more. And so that's how I would run the conversation. it is easy when you're not comfortable talking with people to have a thing you say, but maybe there are better ways. But it does work in its own way. And by saying I'm a professor and those things, it sort of gives them an excuse, gives them a reason not to be mean, because you got to respect professors, right? So that's why I say that. But in fact, fishing, flyers, really most people who came through being invited by their friend. So Yawan, when she came, then she invited her friends, and other people also came through those friends. And even there's a chain of one person invited another. So we do need to fish, we do need to put up flyers, but inviting our friends actually was the most effective. I think the lesson there is the things you've heard me say, and trust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. So raising up one may look small, but one might raise up others. How also in Taiwan, fishing has changed. Fewer students these days come from flyers. Hide that. Hide that. Okay. Fewer students come from flyers these days. Also, fewer students respond to fishing. They seem less interested. There's also social distancing. Because of social distancing, they don't tend to sit in the place where they used to sit, where you could talk to them, and maybe don't want to talk to you as much. Also, Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses started coming to campus, and that poisoned the well. So they're more suspicious if you talk to them. Then with COVID lockdown, we had an empty campus. So how do you fish? The lesson, we need to find new ways to fish. So our brother James has a gift for making friends. There's James. He's from Kenya. He studied here, but he's from Kenya. And his way of doing is, instead of walking up to strangers and saying, would you like to say the Bible? He finds opportunities to start conversations with those around him. For example, at lunch, I mean, you have to sit somewhere and eat lunch, and there's other people around at the table. Why not talk to them? He may not even talk about Jesus on the first day. It is a slow method, right? If you have to talk to someone several times just to even get around to Jesus, depending on how their energy is, it is a slow method. But to think about it from another point of view, both of my current college students who are Bible students were fished by James. So is it really slower? I mean, it seems to get more, right? So it's very slow, but in a situation where people are suspicious of Christians and they're so reflexively saying no, maybe we need to draw them into a conversation, ask them for a drink of water. Also, we have a member who has a cafe right outside campus, and we've tried using it as a place to advertise and hold Bible studies. It's right outside campus. It can also be used as a place to make conversation with students. And if I'm going to eat lunch, why not eat lunch where the students are and try to talk to them? The lesson, make the most of every opportunity. Lunch could be an opportunity. Opportunities also were born out of necessity. When the COVID lockdown came to Taiwan in late May, we had to have our summer Bible conference online. Then I thought, why not pool our resources and invite other chapters of similar time zones and language to also participate in our conference? It turned out that by the time of our summer Bible conference, our lockdown had ended, but it worked out because since we have to have an online conference anyway, there's no need to physically be in the same place. Why not other chapters in nearby, as long as the time zone works, so it's still the daytime there when it's the daytime here, as long as the language is the same, we could save time by working together. I don't think it did save time. There was so much arranging of it, but I think it didn't take more time than a regular conference, and it had some benefits of, especially for smaller chapters, to encourage them and build some community, and so opportunities born out of necessity. And the obstacle of not being able to meet together became an opportunity for mutual encouragement. With the lockdown, we also had to have our group Bible studies online. including at the conference, the group Bible studies at the conference. And after the group Bible study at the conference, I thought, why not encourage isolated chapters by inviting a few people to our group Bible study? I mean, if we're doing it online anyway, and you don't have to be in the same location, then within reason, you can't have too many. It's got to be your own ministry, but why not to encourage a few people and invite them to the group Bible study? So we started inviting some of the Indian members. They've been joining our Bible study. With lockdown over, students will soon be back on campus. This is something I wonder, will a group Bible study online option be less off-putting to wary students? This has me thinking, I'm puzzling about it, because our Bible study is right next to campus. It's not hard to go there, but I wonder, maybe there's some student, if they see a flyer and it says, well, you just log in, maybe that barrier of entry, maybe there might be some who might still, even if it's, I mean, you hear about families that they're in the room texting each other. They're in the same room, but they're texting each other. So maybe we can continue to do online, like in-person group Bible study, but with the computer there also, and connecting to those who might be online. And of course, if a mature member doesn't want to attend, that's a different thing. But for a young new student, maybe that might lower the entry barrier to encourage them maybe to participate. The lesson: every cloud has its silver lining, so we can find opportunities even in these COVID times. So that's my key verse. Be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. So there are opportunities if we look for them, even in a climate where people are opposing the gospel. Thank you.